Hi, a little reminder that we are live on Twitch every Friday and Sunday evening at 8 pm Greek hour. So don't hesitate to join us for cozy streams. Thank you, and I let you with the video.
Okay, let's go. The Black Archives, case number 2, the Puppeteer. Dahlia knew something was wrong. Oh shit, there is. I've seen some of the exchange between you and El Chino, so I know it's going to be interesting. Thank you. I hope it will. Okay, so Dahlia knew something was wrong the day she spotted her ex-boyfriend Eugène in a restaurant with a girl clinging to his arm. The sight would have been perfectly normal if that girl hadn't been Alice, Dahlia's best friend. Her best friend who had vehemently hated Eugène from the very beginning of their relationship until the very end. I just do this with the microphone a little bit. Yeah. So what was she doing clinging to his arm today when just the day before she'd been talking to Dahlia as if nothing had happened? Out of curiosity and anger, she decided to observe them for a moment to understand the nature of their relationship. It only took a few seconds for everything to become clear. Dahlia's best friend was clinging to Eugène's arm like a leash. She laughed far too loudly every time he opened his mouth, pressed herself against him and stared at him. It was clearly flirting. Strange for a girl who had always claimed to hate Eugène. Dahlia didn't wait to confront them. She didn't care about Eugène, she'd obviously moved on. But seeing her best friend act this way was as hurtful as a breakup, if not more so. So she stood in front of them and arms crossed. Okay, I will do it again. So she stood in front of them, arms crossed, a judgmental look on her face, addressing only her friend. "Can you tell me what you're doing?" she asked sharply. Her friend gave her a smile that could only be described as silly. "I'm spending time with Eugène," she replied innocently. Dahlia could feel her anger and frustration growing at this simple answer, which made her feel like she was being taken for a fool. "No, you're not just spending time with him, you're flirting with him. Where did your speech about how much you hate him go?" Her friend let out a small, uncharacteristic laugh. "I changed my mind when I realized how amazing he was. It's true I judged him way too quickly, but in the end, he's an incredible man," she blurted out, under Dahlia's disgusted gaze. Sorry, I just changed a word, I don't know why. A feeling reinforced by the arrogant smile that had spread across Eugène's face. He had been watching Dahlia intently since the beginning of the interaction, relishing her reactions. "Don't get upset. We're not together anymore, so there is no reason to be jealous," he commented with that mocking tone that instantly set Dahlia's blood boiling. Oh no. Someone knocked at my door. Oh no. I'm sorry to cut into the story, but there is a knocking. Okay, they're gone. They're gone. Scared me. I'm fine. I'm fine. Scared me just a little. Don't knock at my door. Okay, I will do it again. "Don't get upset. We're not together anymore." I am on a stealth mission? Yeah, totally. Okay, "Don't get upset. We're not together anymore, so there is no reason to be jealous," he commented with that mocking tone that instantly set Dahlia's blood boiling. She shot him a murderous look. "Nothing to do with jealousy. I'm just trying to understand," she retorted sharply before turning her attention back to her friend. "I was wrong about Eugène, and so were you. He's a wonderful person, and we just got a little closer after your breakup, that's all, her friend interjected. Dahlia remained silent for a moment, long enough to restrain herself from making a scene in the middle of the restaurant. Have fun then, but don't come crying to me later, she declared before walking away with her head held high. She had to act as if it didn't affect her. She knew perfectly well that what Eugene was up to. He was trying to make her jealous and wasn't even trying to hide it. After all, he had never stopped sending her thousands of messages since their breakup. And she had never replied. Half were apologies and the other half were pleading Dahlia to see him again. The last message was even from that very morning, so she found it hard to believe he could suddenly start dating her best friend without any ulterior motives. What was truly strange about this whole thing was her best friend's behavior. She'd gone from pure hatred to adoration in an instant, which was bizarre, especially coming from her. She was a stubborn girl. Usually when she decided she hated someone, it was for good. And most importantly, she was the kind of girl who valued friendship above all else. So why would she do something like that to her best friend? It wasn't like her at all. Dahlia stormed home, throwing her bag into the corner of her room and collapsing into her bed. Her mind was filled with questions she wasn't even sure she wanted answers to. A gentle tap on the door snapped her out of her thoughts. "Come in." The door opened and Dahlia's mother entered the room, looking worried. "Is everything all right? I heard you burst in and slam the door." Dahlia sat down and told her mother everything, just like she always did. She and her mother were really close, like friends. They told each other everything and often spent precious time together without arguments. Dahlia's mother sat down next to her on the bed, putting an arm around her shoulders. I find it hard to believe Alice could do that. She always hated Eugene, and she saw well what he did to you, Dahlia's mother commented, confused. "I know, it's really unbelievable. How could she do this to me? She knew perfectly well it would hurt me," Dahlia complained. Her mother gently stroked her back to comfort her. "It's surely Eugene's fault. He must have manipulated her into going out with him so he could hurt you. I don't think Alice's goal is to hurt you. Your idiot ex-boyfriend is just a manipulator. He always has been," Dahlia's mother concluded. "You think so? If so, what can I do to make her see reason?" Dahlia asked, a little hopefully. "It's delicate, but you're going to have a long talk with Alice to make her see the truth. Remind her what Eugene did to you. It might be a wake-up call for her," her mother advised. "I'm sure he told her tons of lies about me," Dahlia lamented. "You would just have to prove it's all false," her mother encouraged her. Dahlia nodded, convinced she had to try. She was already plotting to show her friend Eugene's true colors. Just then, her phone vibrated. She glanced at it to see the notification of a new message. Dahlia's face darkened when she saw it. She immediately recognized the sender, Eugene. "I know you're angry. I saw your jealousy. You still have feelings for me, I know it now, and I'm not giving up. I will get you back." "Is it him again?" Dahlia's mother asked with a sigh. Dahlia nodded. "He created another new account just to send me a message. A real stalker. Maybe we should talk to the police again," the mother suggested. Dahlia rolled her eyes. "They did absolutely nothing the first 2 times, and that's not likely to change." Dahlia's mother remained silent. She knew her daughter was right. As long as it was just messages without clear threats or attacks, the police wouldn't do anything. Apparently, a disturbed man who creates a million social media accounts to harass a girl isn't a big deal as long as he doesn't try anything aggressive. If they only knew how terrifying this kind of obsession is for the person receiving the messages, even if there are no threats. Unfortunately, these kinds of stories are only taken seriously by the authorities once they escalate into murder. Countless deaths could have been prevented if victims of stalking were taken seriously from the start. So Dahlia and her mother had no choice but to handle the situation themselves. For now, this meant relentlessly blocking all of Eugene's accounts, avoiding him as much as possible, and trying to reason with Dahlia's best friend. With an exasperated sigh, she blocked Eugene's new account. After a long silence, Dahlia's mother gave her a comforting squeeze on her shoulder. "You know what? Why don't you invite Alice over for dinner tonight? That way you won't be alone when you talk to her. I will be here to support you, and we will show her the truth together," she offered. A smile spread across Dahlia's face, filled with relief and gratitude toward her mother. "That's a great idea, thanks, Mom," she agreed. Dahlia grabbed her phone to text her best friend, hesitating for a second before pressing send. "Hi, come over for dinner, there is a lot we need to talk about." The reply came quickly, "Okay, see you tonight." The stress only increased as she thought about what she could say to Alice in a few hours. How could she understand what was going on in her head? How could she help her see things more clearly? Dahlia's mother got to work preparing dinner while Dahlia paced in the living room, rehearsing the speech she had formed in her head over and over. When the doorbell rang, Dahlia practically lunged for the handle to fling the door open. Standing before her was Alice, who thankfully had come alone and didn't seem to harbor any hostility toward Dahlia. On the contrary, she even hugged her as if nothing were amiss. This action left Dahlia somewhat shocked. "I'm glad you're here," Dahlia said, without returning the hug. Instead, she stepped aside to let Alice pass before closing the door and taking a deep breath. She was mentally preparing herself for the conversation that was about to begin. "I'm glad you invited me. I was afraid you would never want to talk to me again," Alice replied with her usual smile. She seemed to be herself that evening, which was a good sign. Dahlia and her mother exchanged a knowing look as everyone sat down at the table. A heavy silence fell as Dahlia's mother filled the plates. After what seemed like an eternity of anguish, Dahlia finally broached the sensitive subject. "So, are you and Eugene dating?" she asked, trying to maintain the light and innocent tone. Alice smiled at the mention of Eugene. "No, we're just spending time together. He's still in love with you, you know. He talks about you all the time." "He's obsessed, yeah," Dahlia retorted. Alice sighed. "You should really give him a second chance. He loves you more than anything. I know I used to hate him, but I've gotten to know him, and he's an incredible person." Dahlia's eyes filled with disdain. "Have you already forgotten what he did to me?" "Everyone makes mistakes," Alice tried to defend. Dahlia's hand tightened on her fork, her anger reaching fever pitch. "You call that mistakes? He disappeared for a year without warning or explanation," she retorted sharply, her voice rising with a mixture of disappointment and pain. Alice remained silent for a moment. She knew how much this had hurt Dahlia. On the other hand, she was determined to convince her friend to give Eugene a second chance. That was the only reason she had come after all. He had his reasons, and he simply didn't want to bother you or worry you with his problems, she tried to defend Eugene. "It's true that it's less worrying to disappear abroad for a year," Dahlia retorted sarcastically. Alice sighed. She knew it wouldn't be easy. I know you were hurt, but he's changed, and he really cares about you. If only you would give him another chance. She didn't have time to finish her sentence before Dahlia cut her off suspiciously. You told him you were coming to my place, didn't you? This whole speech was something he asked you to give to convince me to give him a second chance, wasn't it? Alice's silence and her eyes avoiding eye contact confirmed Dahlia's suspicion. Her best friend had been completely brainwashed by Eugène to the point of defending him against every argument. Unable to bear it any longer, Dahlia decided to go from subtlety to brutal confrontation. Okay, so if Eugène is so incredible, then he has an excuse for everything. He's done, doesn't he? I have to go. It's fine, you can go, Calvin. We will see you again later, it's fine. Have a good time, have a good evening. Manipulating me into eating tons of food until I vomited, just so I'd gain weight, lose my self-confidence, and be convinced that no one else would want me but him. Bye. Lying to me about what he did to get money, lying to me about practically everything. Actually, the signs of violent behavior, the constant manipulation, and the disappearing for a year without explanation. Do you have an explanation or an excuse for all of this? I'm listening, go ahead. It is Mr. Kraft. Welcome, Mr. Kraft. Dahlia crossed her arms, raising an eyebrow condescendingly as she waited impatiently for an answer. Alice remained confused by this list of truths. She had been there every time Eugène had hurt her best friend, and she couldn't find any excuse for him. Yet she also couldn't bring herself to hate him for it. All she knew was that she had to convince Dahlia to get back together with Eugène. It was as if she had no other purpose in life. She didn't really know why, but she absolutely had to convince Dahlia. He's changed, I swear. He's really sorry for everything he did to you. He even sent you an apology, she declared. In a billion messages he sent me despite the fact that I constantly blocked him. Yeah, that's called harassment and obsession. It's just proof that nothing had changed. He's ready to do anything to control others, even turn my best friend against me. Alice coughed. You don't even realize how lucky you are that he's interested in you. With your personality, any other man would run away from you, but he loves you, and you react like he's the bad guy because you're incapable of forgiving. Don't be surprised if you end up alone treating people like that. Alice exploded, even though she didn't mean any word of it deep down. She wanted to apologize and take back what she'd said, but she was stuck, unable to say what she really meant. Besides, Dahlia was far too enraged to listen to anything more from Alice. She jumped to her feet, her face contorted with anger. That's enough, she snapped coldly. Then she grabbed Alice's arm tightly and dragged her to the front door, which she opened before throwing her friend outside. Could she still call her friend now? She slammed the door without waiting for Alice's protests, then turned to her mother, who had silently witnessed all the scene. She approached her daughter with a rueful expression and then took her in her arms. One day she will face the truth, she murmured, trying to reassure her daughter. I just want him out of my life. I know, darling, me too, but unfortunately the police won't do anything. Dahlia sighed. It was already difficult enough dealing with an overbearing ex, but if her best friend was now turning against her, things were becoming truly depressing. I'm tired. I'm going to bed, Dahlia said, her voice drained from energy. Her mother nodded, understanding, even though she hated seeing her daughter like this. Dahlia went up to her room before collapsing onto her bed, trying to forget the disastrous evening when she was sure she had lost her best friend forever. Days passed and the situation only worsened. One by one, all of Dahlia's friends had turned against her, siding with Eugene. Little by little, they started giving her long lectures, showing her how mean she was to Eugene. She was losing them day by day and found herself isolated and judged by those she had trust. Unfortunately, she couldn't do anything about it. No one listened to her when she tried to set the record straight. And in the end, the entire school had ended up believing Eugene's lies and hating Dahlia for no reason. At her wit's end, she finally grabbed Eugene in a hallway to confront him. "Is this how you plan to win me back? Turn the whole school against me and isolate me until I have no other choice?" she spat out with hatred. Eugene flashed her a smug, self-satisfied smile. "If that's what it takes to get you back," he confirmed without the slightest shame. "And how do you convince them, huh? Do you tell them lies about me? Do you blackmail them?" Leaning against the wall, he strained forward to get closer to Dahlia. "I don't need to. I just have to tell them to hate you, and they do," he declared proudly. Dahlia wanted nothing more than to punch him in the face, but she restrained herself. She didn't need to tarnish what little reputation she had left. So she let out a mocking laugh. "I see, you've gone back to your old tricks, handing out money left and right to get what you want." He shrugged nonchalantly. "I don't need money for that anymore. All people need to do is look me in the eyes." Dahlia gave him a judgmental look, as if he'd said the stupidest thing in the world. But the moment their eyes met, something caught her attention. Eugene's irises had turned a dark purple as he stared intently at her, as if waiting for some kind of reaction. The sight was somewhat unsettling and made Dahlia uncomfortable, so she resorted to her favorite escape route, sarcasm. "Yeah, purple." "Oh wow, your contact lenses are so cool. It's true that it must convince a lot of people that everything you're saying is so true and important," she spat out before storming off. Once away from Eugene, she sat down in an empty hallway to take a deep breath. There was something abnormal and disturbing about Eugene's eyes. Besides the sudden strange color, there was a glint in them that gave her the same impression she had when she saw pictures of serial killers on TV. As if their eyes were devoid of all soul and emotion, leaving only an intense coldness that could make anyone uncomfortable. But the worst was yet to come. One day, after a long lonely day at school during which Dahlia had endured sidelong glances, remarks, and whispers behind her back, she finally came home. She thought she could finally find peace in her little heaven where she wouldn't hear a word about Eugene. The moment she opened the front door and rushed inside, she felt her stomach clench. A bad feeling. "Mom?" she called, but received no answer. Of course, her mother was still at work. She was home alone, so why did she sense another presence, as if someone were watching her from the corner? She got her answer when she entered the living room. She froze when her eyes fell on Eugene, comfortably seated on the sofa. He was relaxed, as if the place belonged to him. "What are you doing here?" Dahlia asked, crossing her arms. "I thought you would be easier to convince if we met outside the school." He replied with a shrug. "It's trespassing." Dahlia had already reached for her phone to call the police, but a flicker in the corner of her eye stopped her. "I invited him," her mother's voice rang out. Dahlia's arm fell limply as her eyes met her mother's, filled with both surprise and sorrow. Her breath caught in her throat, as if all the air had suddenly been extracted from her lungs. Why? Dahlia managed to whisper, hurt by this betrayal. You need to listen to what he has to say. Eugene has made mistakes, but he's really a good person. I thought a conversation between the two of you might help clear things up. The same old story again, the one Dahlia had been hearing over and over for days. First her best friend, then the school, and now her mother. This wasn't just manipulation, Dahlia was sure of it. Her mother would never have turned her back on her, much less defended someone like Eugene. She turned to Eugene, her fist clenched and her eyes filled with hatred. What did you do to her? What did you do to my mother, to Alice, to everyone? Eugene stood up, moving dangerously close to Dahlia, who could no longer bear the situation she had been enduring for days. It's just a magic trick, he revealed vaguely. What? He glanced at Dahlia's mother. You will understand better if I give you a demonstration, he explained, his eyes returning to that ominous purple hue. Go make us some tea while Dahlia and I talk, he ordered curtly to Dahlia's mother. Unexpectedly, instead of getting angry, please Dahlia slime bro. Unexpectedly, instead of getting angry, Dahlia's mother simply nodded and went to the kitchen without a word under her daughter's incredulous and worried gaze. Mom? Dahlia called, but again receiving no answer. No point calling her, she will only listen to me, Eugene interjected, sounding far too pleased with himself. Dahlia glared at him. Stop it, leave her alone. No, I think I will keep her under my control for now, he refused. Her eyes blazing with rage, Dahlia slammed her fist into Eugene's jaw without any restraint. He groaned in pain, rubbing his jaw together to ease the agony. Get out of my house right now, Dahlia ordered. Before he could even refuse, her fist was already raised, ready to strike the young man's face again. But she froze when she heard her mother approaching. She turned to see a sight that filled her with panic. Her mother stood here, a knife in one hand, pressing the blade against her wrist, dangerously close to her veins. A vicious smile spread across Eugene's face. Hit me again, and she dies. Throw me out, and she dies. Refuse to listen to me, and she dies. Go away, and she dies. Your choice, he announced before sinking back into the sofa, gesturing for Dahlia to sit on the opposite side. And on the opposite one. Her eyes fixed on her mother, the rage vanished from Dahlia's body, leaving only fear. Against her will, she slowly sat down on the sofa as if afraid that the slightest sudden movement would worsen the situation. Good, Eugene gloated before signaling to Dahlia's mother to leave them. The young woman let out a trembling sigh as relief and helplessness washed over her. Now that you're finally willing to listen to me, things will be easier. With tears in her eyes, Dahlia glared at him. She remained silent, trying to calm her heart, which had felt like it was going to burst since she had saw that blade pressed against her mother's wrist. I don't even know how I acquired this ability, but one day everyone started obeying my every command, he confided, his eyes scanning Dahlia from head to toe. The only problem is it doesn't seem to work on the one person I'd truly like to have in my grasp, you. Dahlia frowned. The whole situation seemed surreal, but she couldn't deny how her mother obeyed Eugene. Even if it was ridiculous, it explained why almost the entire town had turned against Dahlia overnight. I guess life itself doesn't want you back in my life, Dahlia commented. Perhaps my power doesn't work on you, but I can still control you in another way, he said, giving Dahlia's mother a knowing look. The young woman tensed up. Taking control of an entire city just to try to get a girl is pathetic, Dahlia spat. "You're so stubborn that I had to resort to extreme measures," he retorted. "Oh, it's my fault now," she mocked. Eugène chuckled. You've always been too stubborn, incapable of understanding that everything I do is for you. I love you, but you don't seem to care in the slightest." Dahlia glared at him for the 100th time today. "That's not love, it's called obsession," she retorted. "All you do is control and hurt and then repeat that you love me, but they are just empty words." If that's how you want to see it, fine. But you can't run away from me now. I will convince you eventually. That's a nice theory, Marius. You can dream on. Eugène's smile only widened as he turned to Dahlia's mother, who was returning with cups of tea. "If I move in here, you don't mind, do you?" he asked the woman in her 40s, though it wasn't really a question. Dahlia's mother smiled. "Of course we don't mind. It will allow you to spend more time together," she agreed without hesitation. Dahlia clenched her teeth so hard her jaw ached. Without a word, she got up and ran to her room, slamming the door behind her. Frustration, helplessness, rage, everything swirled around her, threatening to overwhelm her. She felt her breath grow shorter, her throat tightening. How could she get out of this situation? How could she escape Eugène? How could she free her mother and her friends? She felt so helpless, even though she wasn't affected by Eugène's control. She still didn't know how to stop him or get rid of him. The days passed like a blurry nightmare for Dahlia, who gradually found herself plunged into despair. Eugène threatened her mother every time he tried to force her to spend time with him. Day after day, she had to face him and watch her mother obey him like a dog. Eugène lived with Dahlia, followed her everywhere she went, and gave her no peace. He repeated the same thing over and over. "I've changed, I love you, I'll never hurt you again, I promise." It was like brainwashing. But Dahlia was much stronger than that, and she didn't give up. Empty promises didn't affect her. Then came the moment when Dahlia finally had an opening. She was at her wits' end and ready to do anything to get rid of Eugène, even if it meant going too far. So when he announced he was sending her mother away to spend some time alone with Dahlia, she couldn't help but think it was the perfect opportunity. She waited in silence, watching her mother leave the house. "I'm cooking tonight, sit down," Eugène announced, as if everything was perfectly normal. Without replying, Dahlia sat down at the dining room table. She analyzed Eugène's movement, waiting for the perfect moment and, above all, summoning her courage. He hadn't managed to brainwash Dahlia, but he had still succeeded in instilling enough fear in her to make her hesitate. She took a deep breath and then stood up to approach the young man, concentrating her efforts on maintaining a gentle expression. "Eugène," she called, placing a hand on his arm. The young man froze in surprise for a second, then turned toward her, his eyes filled with hope. "Yes, my love?" Dahlia did everything she could to keep from vomiting at that moment, as much from anguish as from disgust. She forced herself to lean closer to him, sliding her hand along the counter to discreetly bring it closer to the knife that lay there. She kept her eyes fixed on Eugène's so as not to arouse the slightest suspicion. "I've thought about it a lot, and it's true that no man has ever gone to such lengths for me before. I mean, hypnotizing an entire town just for me is a lot," she blurted out, trying to sound as convincing as possible. Eugène's face lit up with a wide smile as he cupped Dahlia's face in his hands. I knew you would understand sooner or later." As he leaned forward, his lips moving dangerously close to Dahlia's, She seized the knife. With a swift movement, she plunged the blade into Eugene's stomach, his eyes widening in shock. "What I've realized is that you will never stop if I don't make you disappear," Dahlia said, watching him stagger backward. A red stain was already spreading across his t-shirt. He even dared to look at her as if she had betrayed him, which, to Dahlia, was the most ridiculous thing he could have imagined, given what he had done to her. "Then disappear with me," he ordered, his irises turning a dark purple, the color that signified he was using his power. "Your control has no effect on me," Dahlia reminded him. "It wasn't for you." Dahlia frowned in confusion. It only took a few seconds before all hell broke loose. All the neighbors in the district gathered around her house. They banged on the door and windows to get in and blocked all the exits, trapping Dahlia inside. Every minute more people joined the chaos. Eugene had truly hypnotized the entire town. In panic, Dahlia glared at Eugene, who had sat down on the floor, his blood pooling. He leaned against the wall, his mauve eyes fixed on Dahlia. I could have made you happy, but no, you had to be so stubborn and keep rejecting me. You even stabbed me. You deserve what's coming to you," he lamented. "Tell them to stop," she almost begged. He shook his head. In a fit of panic and anger, she kicked him in the ribs, eliciting a groan of pain from him. She was growing desperate. As the hypnotized people began smashing the windows, their arms thrusting inside. "Stop them!" she yelled at Eugene as the front door was forced open. But he continued to refuse, his eyes retaining that mauve color that Dahlia hated to see. When she heard footsteps invading her house and approaching the kitchen where she was, she decided to act, to try everything out of sheer desperation. So she picked up the knife, and after a moment of intense hesitation, she plunged the blade into Eugene's eyes just as his puppet entered the room. Eugene fell instantly dead, and everyone else collapsed all at the same time. Dahlia surveyed her surroundings in shock, the knife still in her hand. Everyone who had been hypnotized by Eugene lay unconscious on the floor. Dahlia quickly threw the knife away in disgust. She hadn't wanted to kill. She had never wanted to hurt anyone, not even Eugene, but she had been pushed to the limit. And now she found herself with an entire town whose inhabitants were unconscious. She remained curled up in a ball in the kitchen for a long time, crying. Relief, sadness, she didn't really know, but at least it was over. People gradually came to consciousness, confused and frightened, but they retained their memories of Eugene's control. Most were traumatized. Following Dahlia's mother's advice, they all agreed to bury Eugene's body where no one would ever find it. After that, Dahlia received the support of the entire town. Her friends had come back to their senses, and even Alice had become the person she had always been. The former victims had only one desire: to forget. For her part, Dahlia finally felt free, although her nightmares often featured Eugene. It was finally time to turn the page for good and move on. And this is the end. The end of the story.